Hello, sir. I am from the States. I apologize. I'm going to guess at your name. I assume it would be Jorgen. Let me know if that's correct or not. So the way you're throwing is the elbow thing is something I've worked with a lot of people on, and the bracing thing, getting your bones to stack right, that's a concept that I've just come up with and started helping people with, and at least one guy I've had a ton of success with it. So I just wanted to make a video for you to bounce that idea off you so that you understand what I'm trying to say so that you can fix it as efficiently as possible. I think you can absolutely get to a goal of 65 miles per hour if you're already at 62. Like, oh, wait a second, what did you say? I'm currently trying to get to in a consistent, okay, so personal max of 65 and a consistent 60 to 62. And what were you at in these? You were at 53. Oh, no, you're already at 60. Yeah, you've got that. No problem. Okay, so let's take a look here. The first thing was the elbow. So that the flip up that the disc does, that is pretty clearly indicating where your elbow is pointing. And your elbow is pointing at the ground. So the pointy part of your elbow is pointed down. So if I were to take a straw and tape it to the inside of your elbow, it would be that, and the straw would be pointed straight at the camera. That's indicated by this because the disc is on that same. If we made your elbow a hinge, your elbow would hinge this way. And what we actually want it to do is we want the straw to be this way, to be vertical. And we want the disc to be this way, to be horizontal, so that when you bend the elbow, the arm and the disc actually curve in to hit your left shoulder. So that's that. It's that simple. Easy to understand, often very difficult to get your body to do. Right. So what did you say about that? I think you said something down here. Struggle to keep it in a straight line. Not sure if it's a mobility thing or just muscle memory. It's probably muscle memory. There can be a mobility issue, but more often you look like a pretty relatively young, able-bodied person. I wouldn't expect there to be a mobility issue. In people who get up in their 50s, 60s, 70s, then there can be a mobility issue, and your body just doesn't want your elbow to be up. But you said you started doing some yoga for hips, back, neck, and shoulders to try to get better mobility. That's awesome. You can also work in the shoulder mobility that I'll show you. Front leg, we'll come back to. I'm going to get a light for you. Boom. Cool. Okay. So you're ending up here. Means your elbow stick would be here and the disc bends towards your face. That elbow bend doesn't help me throw the disc. This is like a backwards hula hoop roller situation. So what I want is I want the stick in my elbow to not be here, but I want it to be there. That way this bend, it's super easy to keep the disc flat. Right? You're being here and then having to do some weird arm math to get it back to flat, which you're doing and it's working pretty well. But let's make it easier. So, new rule, if you want to throw flat, disc starts flat, disc goes to flat, disc comes back to flat, disc leaves flat. Easy. If you want to throw hyzer, disc starts on hyzer, goes to hyzer, comes back to hyzer, comes out hyzer. And hyzer, same thing. Hyzer, and hyzer, and hyzer. Easy to understand, difficult to do. What gets in the way is it's not your elbow position, it's your elbow orientation. This. Note the whole arm is moving. This orientation comes from your shoulder joint. So I can internally rotate my shoulder and the inside edge of the disc goes down. I can externally rotate my shoulder and the inside of the edge goes up. So which one of those do you do too much of? internal or external. It's external because you're popping to here. That's very, very natural for our shoulders to do when we lean over and reach back. It's easy for the shoulder to go here because it likes that. That's happy. This is not happy, and it starts to introduce some tension here. So when you're bent over on a hyzer plane, like you should be most of the time, it's difficult, especially if you're trying to keep the disc here. If you drop it, it's easier to keep the elbow up. When you raise the disc up, the elbow wants to creep down because of the shoulder rotation. So I have no idea what yoga pose that would be, but probably something like this, where you're just building in that internal rotation. You're just testing that limit. Can I be here? And then can I make a frisbee shape while keeping that motion? And then can I chill it out and make it reasonable and still have a decent throw? So that's what I would add into your mobility routine, is just working on this. And it's honestly, you're probably fine. So it is mobility wise, you're probably fine. But where we run into an issue that's kind of still mobility related is we want to get here because it's more comfortable than being here. But things you can try. This isn't my first solution, but it's easier to keep the elbow up if you suitcase the disc. If you hang the disc down like this, then you're going to be curling up, which can be beneficial because it helps you get to a nose down position for some people. You can also just commit to keeping it on the same plane the whole time. That's kind of what I like better because it's simpler. It doesn't introduce another variable of having to roll your wrist up. You might end up doing that a little bit eventually when you're trying to roll the nose down, but you were already getting nose down, so you might already be doing some of that. Yeah, because you'd have to, this tends to get you nose up. So you're probably doing some wrist curl to correct for it already. So that's probably already in your throw. Where was I? Lost my train of thought. It's gone. Totally gone. Fake it. So just stay flat is my first guess of what's going to be best. This can also help with the elbow thing. We're talking about elbow position, elbow orientation. And lat activation. So the reason we want to go into external rotation is because that muscle, your lat, is what makes you do a pull-up. It's this muscle. It's pulling your whole shoulder blade assembly down. And I think there's actually slightly different muscles that actually cause the rotation, because that's your scapula rotating this way, I think. I don't know my anatomy good enough. I should go take a course or something. But you can engage the lat, without actually externally rotating the shoulder joint. So you don't want to externally rotate. You want to stay in internal rotation and still have some lat activation. So the most useful cue I found for people to come up with that, I didn't find it. I knew about it, but Disc Golf Neil, who is now Stepwise Disc Golf on YouTube, put out a really good video where he's talking about shoulder pronation. So shoulder and pronation. So you're not moving your spine, but you're sending your shoulder as far forward as you can. This is pronation. No, it's not pronation. It's protraction. Sorry. Protraction and retraction. Elevation, depression. So we want to stay depressed. You want to keep your shoulder down, and then you want it protracted. You want it pushed forward. So the reason why is if I make this disc golf shape and I put it against a wall, and then I try to push into that wall, at some point I'm going to push. My body pushing is stronger than my shoulder is holding that angle, holding this angle right here, like 90 degrees. But if I protract my shoulder as far as I can, then I'm taking this 90-degree angle from my upper arm to my shoulder, and I'm rounding it, making this a curve. That gives me much better muscular support here and better structure. So if I have my shoulder pressed forward, then I can push into that thing as hard as I can, and my shoulder's not going to give. It's not going to collapse this way. So you can use that structure to help keep your elbow up. If you send your shoulder as far forward as you can, it's a lot easier to have your elbow stay on this plane instead of get here. Like if I'm protracting, I don't want to get here because then I lose my protraction. So you just focus on pushing this forward as far as you can and holding it there, and then do your throw. It'll naturally switch to retracting and pulling back to where your chest is opening in your follow through. Then you can use back muscles to throw and extend the chest muscles to follow through. So that's that part. Easy to understand, potentially hard to do, but that pushing your shoulder forward cue really helps people keep the elbow up. So there's that part. The second part, you said regarding the front leg, do you mean I don't push back with it, straighten it a bit? Instead, it's like a suspension absorbing the shock instead of transferring to the hips. Yeah, that's what you do. So you want it to shock absorb first for like a sixth of a second while you're getting your weight onto that foot. And then you want it to firm up and straighten a bit and stop your front hip. And it needs to do that in a very specific way, which is basically staying in alignment. So let's check if you do that. So you're doing a lot of stuff right, because 60 miles per hour is not a joke. That's a pretty darn good speed. So there's shock absorber, your knee's bending. And there's your knee drifting forward, rotating forward. And then it keeps rotating forward. And then it keeps rotating forward, but I'm going to draw it right here. So those two lines are not in line. And you want them in line, because it's really hard for that structure to be rigid. Your muscle that's supporting this joint isn't strong enough and rigid enough and robotic enough to keep force from leaking out of your knee. So the only way we can keep force from leaking out of your knee is to stack your bones. So when you get on it, it has a little bit of bend to it. That's good. It's absorbing shock. But as it goes forward, rather than the leg staying bent here as it's going forward, you want those bones to be in a dead straight line, which they are here, but there's actually still some bend in your knee. We just can't see it because of the perspective. But rather than the knee continuing like it was here and now it's here and then it's going to end up there, you don't want that to happen. You don't want the knee to drift. So you want, while you are bracing, you want your front leg to be here, and then here, and then here, and then you want it to rotate forward on the heel. So that's the bone stack thing, and getting that figured out can be really hard, and it can take a long time. Let me pull up another video of a guy I just started working with named Kalen, and I can show you what it looks like. Okay, so here's Kalen. I've done 2 reviews for him. He got the 3rd one since he sent me this video. We're going to do another one on this one, trying to clean up how his back leg is moving. But he changed the front leg. It works. It's just fine. So this is what we're shooting for. So he's coming off of his X step. His toe gets down. His heel gets down forward of the toe. And once the heel is down, bam, the leg locks in. And it's going to stay there in terms of rotation. So it's not going to rotate forward at all. His kneecap is pointed at us. It's going to stay pointed at us. He draws some lines on his video here. The knee is going to stay there. It's not going to go from here to there, because that's knee drift. If your knee is drifting, then your femur is turning. If your femur is turning, then your front hip isn't stable. If your front hip isn't stable, then you cannot fire your quad to straighten your knee to keep everything how we want it to work. If you do fire your quad hard while your knee is rotating, you will, over time, if not immediately, damage your knee. So moving forward, the leg stays there, stays there, stays there. You'll see the rest of the hips folding forward into the front leg. Front leg not moving, back leg moving. And then you're in follow through and the rotation is on the heel. So what Kaylin is doing here that is not ideal is the rear knee blowing forward like that. We actually want the rear leg to end up behind you where it bounces off of the brace and then comes around this way. So Kaylin nailed the front leg. We still have some work to do on getting the back leg to work out. There's videos on my channel about that. That's called the 3 rails theory is what that's all about. Okay, so let me pause and go back to you. Okay. So there's a lot of steps to this one. So the first thing is that you're planting with your toe. Can't see it very well through the tech disc stats, but your toe is open. So that's the first thing we need to change, because the toe being open, oops, got too many hotkeys. Toe being open creates a problem because your toe is going that way and your knee is going this way. So your knee really wants to be in line with your toe. And when those aren't in line, it's not safe for your quad to fire, so it's not going to. Your brain is very good at keeping your knee safe, and it knows your knee's doing some weird twisty stuff right now, so I'm not going to let you fire your quad, even if you want to. I am a smart brain. I know better than you. I'm going to keep your knee tendon safe, regardless of how far you want to throw the little plastic circle. So the first thing we need to do is your knee's in a pretty good spot. We need to get your toe to agree with your knee. We also want that to agree with your hip. So I'll walk you real quick through the way that I do that. There's a lot of info on this on my channel. Look up the new one leg drill or the new one leg walkthrough something. I'm wearing a white sweatshirt and it says from the vault or FTV. That's the one I would start with. It's the most concise explanation. And then there's a longer video called the new one leg drill. And just go on my channel, search for one leg. You'll find more than you could possibly want to look at. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to build that toe to knee to hip alignment. So this is kind of graphing where my hip is going. So if I'm throwing straight that way, I'm going to turn my foot about 30 degrees back. You don't really have to worry about this yet. It's just I'm lining up my power spot here about 45 degrees before my target line. We can talk more about that later if you want to, but this is a placeholder for that. So my toe is 30 degrees back, my knee is 30 degrees back, my hip is 30 degrees back. And so I get here in this one leg position where I'm committing to a hyzer lean because that makes my hips work better. My hips have here, they're flat, and then I have a high hip and a low hip. And then when I go forward, I have a high hip and a low hip, and this one going down works better because when I brace, this one goes up. So I want those two forces to be aligned with each other. So I'm here. What almost all of us are going to do is our brains evolved to throw big, heavy kettlebell type things. When you throw that, you need power to move it. You do not need as much power to move this thing quickly. You can just make your arm be a whip and it works fine. So what we do is we're here 30, 30, 30. And then we go, okay, I need power. So I got to get power here. And then you've screwed up your alignment with your knee. And then when you go forward, your alignment is good in passing and then screwed up again. So your quad is never in a spot where it's safe to fire. So what we need to do is keep those in line. Have this hip go up, not so much rotate, but just have the left side of the pelvis go up without the stick moving a whole bunch, and then drop the left side of the pelvis, and that creates the hip torque that we throw from, and we keep this alignment. That's what allows you to get to where you can do a powerful single leg squat safely and not blow out your knee. And that creates the hip torque boom that we see where the hips switch sides quickly. When you get your knee drifting forward, your hips switch sides slowly. And the telltale sign is you'll see both knees rotating forward together. Whereas when you do it right, you'll see this knee stop, this knee start to rotate in, and then this is a lot more linear, and this starts to drift behind, and then follow through happens on the heel. So that's the crash course. There's a lot more info on my YouTube channel, Trebuchet Disc Golf. If you want more help, go sign up on the Patreon, and we can do this often. So this is exactly what I would do for an intro session. And then you would get a follow-up where you send me another video of probably you doing the one leg drill or doing some drills working on the elbow plane. And then we would just go from there, do the same thing again next month. So ask any questions if you have any questions. If you like this style of coaching and you want to sign up on the Discord, absolutely go for that. I'll ask you if you're okay with me putting this video on my YouTube channel. If you're not, that's totally fine. There's absolutely no pressure. I just wanted to do it as a chance for me to run through that new way of explaining the bone stacking thing. So basically the idea is you're going to learn to stack your bones here in a one leg throw. I recommend just practicing it like this. So you're trying to build a link from your rear hip to your throwing arm. So it's not rear hip, arm, rear hip. It's the hip is influencing the arm the whole time. You're building a connection from here to here, all the way to the disc. And you're building that, keeping this toe to knee to hip alignment intact. So that's good. This is bad because it's going to make you spin out too much. This is not a power move. This is a alignment and calibration move. So you're learning how to have the pelvis rotate on top of a static leg. So you don't want to do it at a power level where your leg can't be static. So I'll show you what that looks like. It looks like this. If I have to spin out, I put too much power in. So what we're trying to learn is how hard can I throw and how can I organize my pelvis and up and my trailing leg so that I don't mess up this leg alignment, because the leg alignment is key. Once we have that, then we go to a one step and start trying to say, okay, can I be here? Can I have some forward momentum and then lock that leg in, have the leg stay linear, and then have the rotation happen after in the follow through. Once you've got that, then we just add next step and then add more and more momentum, always treating it kind of like weightlifting. Like I'm not just going to go full speed on this leg and expect it to do its job. I'm going to do it at 30% and then 50% and then 70% and then 80% and then 90% and then maybe 95%. I'm not even going to do 100 because I don't want to hurt myself. So take it slow and progressively, and don't do a high volume of reps at a high volume of power. Start low and slow and make sure, treat it like weightlifting. Make sure that you're building it foundationally from the ground up. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Check out the Patreon. Ask questions if any of this is not clear. Those are the two big things I would focus on for you. So you have two levels. You have an arm change to make and you have a brace change to make. Hopefully the arm change will be relatively quick, so you could do that first. And then I would commit to spending some time in the one legs and make sure that you really cement in that new idea that I am throwing from a strong and stable front leg. And it's going to be static at first. And then I'm going to take that feeling and I'm going to transport it to strong and static, strong and dynamic in a full walk up. Okay. Good luck, sir. I hope I said your name right. See ya.